With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to begin with our next session. This next session is a fireside chat focusing on building new digital infrastructure for India's financial ecosystem. For this, we have with us Mr. Sahil Kini, CEO, Reserve Bank Innovation Hub. With a round of applause, please join me in welcoming onto our stage Mr. Sahil Kini. And conducting this fireside chat, let's also welcome on our stage Mr. Mouli, VP of AI PayPal. Dignitaries, requesting your presence on our stage. Thank you, dignitaries, for joining us for today's fireside chat. We're looking forward to this interesting session. Mr. Mouli, I'll leave you to the stage to lead the way for this discussion. Go ahead, please.
Is there a clock that I can look at or? Okay. We have the entire day, basically, I'll assume. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Such a pleasure to be here. It's my privilege and our privilege to have the opening conversation at a prestigious summit like IDS. And I am here today with someone who's been at the center of India's most consequential digital infrastructure stories, from Aadhaar to UPI and many other stints in between, and now leading RBIH. And Sahil, welcome. Such a pleasure to have you here. A round of applause for Sahil.
Thank you, everyone. Pleasure to be here.
So, what I'm going to do, right? I have a few parts to this fireside chat, just so that we all walk away with interesting nuggets from Sahil's journey. And so, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with us, getting to know Sahil a little better. So, Sahil, your career reads like a masterclass in building at scale. ID Madras, McKinsey, and then you were part of the team that built Aadhaar, UPI, founded Setu, which Pine Labs, acquired, and now RBIH. When you connect the dots looking back, what is the thread that runs through all of it?
For me, very early on in my career, I was very fortunate to become part of the very early team at Aadhaar. I joined Aadhaar as a volunteer about 1 month before the first Aadhaar number was issued. This was back in August of 2010. And, I was not even 25 then. I was very young. And I was very lucky to get a sense for how it is basically the first digital public infrastructure that was built in India. And I got a sense for the scale of impact and the scale of operations of the government. And you also get a deep respect for outside of these cities where, we wear shirts and pants and we speak in English, the importance of Bharat Sarkar for most people in India. And when I was growing up, I was lucky that, there were only 2 photographs in the house. One was of my grandfather, the other was of Vishweshwaraya. And when I graduated, my degree was handed to me by a gentleman called Sridharan, who built the metro.
Of course, yeah.
And I got to work with Nandan at Aadhaar. And the common thread was, these are all engineers that built systems for India that literally crores of people use every single day.
Correct.
And whether they know who built it or not is not relevant. The fact is that these systems made the lives of everybody in India better every day, quietly. And I got a sense that is probably the highest sense of service that an engineer could do, which is build systems at scale for everybody.
Yeah.
And so when I started Setu, the idea there was to build again on top of India Stack. Because I had worked on Aadhaar, I was lucky to be part of the small volunteer group that worked on things like UPI, like account aggregator, in its very early days when they were just technical specifications.
Yeah.
And so the business was to be built on these DPIs that emerged in the mid-2010s. And then once we were fortunate enough to kind of, Setu was acquired by Pine Labs. After that, it took a short break, and then it was very clear to me that, there are only 2 people that I can actually work for. One is myself, the other is Bharat Sarkar. And so I ended up at the Reserve Bank Innovation Hub. I was very lucky that they chose me to be able to serve essentially the spirit of Seva
Yeah.
that brings me here.
Absolutely. No, I think that's great. So can you double click a little bit on how you made that choice? Because I think, coming from the freedom of being an entrepreneur and then the complexity of working for a, like a center funded institute, like you can operate at scale, but it comes with some complexity. Can you just walk us through how you made that choice?
Yeah, I think fundamentally for me, look, once you make some money, making more money is fine. I mean, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
At least that was my question.
Yeah.
And so the skills and experience and knowledge that I had gained in building these kind of businesses, I felt like the only worthwhile use that I could have for doing something, be it if I put it in service of the people.
Yeah.
And again, that spirit of seva is what drew me to apply for this role. And it was a process. I think close to 1,000 people applied for this role. They
course.
chose me to do this. Again, that is a sign from
Yeah.
somewhere
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
whatever systems need to be built, I will have a small role to play in it. There is, of course, complexity in building as a part of the system, but it's a constraint that I enjoy.
Yeah.
It's something that I respect.
Yeah.
There is a reason why the government and the Reserve Bank operates the way they do.
Yeah.
They essentially deploy public money, our money, India's money, to build systems for all of us.
Yeah.
And that comes with certain, systemic constraints, but they exist for a reason. And I quite enjoy navigating that to build cutting edge technology for India. And enough stalwarts have shown the way on how it needs to be done. And I've had the good fortune of learning from some of them.
Absolutely.
And so I don't necessarily see it as a challenge. I actually see, constraints actually enable innovation.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's great. I think the purpose that you've articulated for both my questions, I think covers above any complexity. I think the opportunity to make impact. Wonderful. Sahil, for many of us in the room, we probably know about, at a surface level about RBIH, but how do you explain it to all of us? What do you do? Like, what does your day look like? Like, we talk often about getting up and going to, make a difference to the world. Can you walk us through, the RBIH, what you do, the vision, the mission, and, the kind of impact it is having for the nation and for the globe?
So Reserve Bank Innovation Hub, or RBIH, is one of the subsidiaries, is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Reserve Bank of India, which means our only shareholder is the RBI. It's a Section 8 company. It's a not-for-profit company. And our express purpose is to imagine and build what India's economy will need 5, 10, 20 years from now. So essentially, there are three spheres of operation at RBIH. One is research, figuring out what are the big questions that India's economy will be grappling with. Like I said, 5 or 10 years from now, this could be as something as forward-looking as post-quantum cryptography. It could be what else can AI do 5 years from now, and developing pilots around it, and stress testing and seeing which ones are ready for prime time. Which brings me to essentially the core of what we do, which is designing, building, and scaling digital public infrastructure. Here currently we have 3 initiatives that we're working on, which we think are ready for scale, are in the process of being built and operating at various levels of scale. The first one is called the Unified Lending Interface, which is our objective there is to do for credit what UPI did for payments. So building a single universal API gateway for every single data service that you will need to complete an end-to-end account opening journey, particularly in credit. So KYC API is, everything that you'll need to verify a person's identity.
Yeah.
All the data that you'll get there's a lot of data about an individual or about a business that is available with the government, which hasn't necessarily been externalized in a way that software systems can consume them. And this could be land record data from states, which is useful for a Kisan credit card or other kinds of credit which are collateralized. It could be something as simple as having Vahan data over an API so that you can underwrite second-hand loans, of course, second-hand car loans, GST data, income tax data, MSME data from the MSME Udyam, for example, or for MSME credit. So all of these are data sets that exist with various state and central government ministries, making them available through a single API gateway. And again, working with private data service providers, bringing that data in so that lenders can access this data and make more efficient credit decisions, and simplifying the entire process for lenders kind of wanting to provide credit. The express purpose there being financial inclusion, making credit more accessible and more digital in the country. The other two platforms that we're working on, excuse me, are both related to fraud detection and fraud management. One called Mule Hunter, which relates to account-related fraud. The idea there is we apply AI and data science to transaction patterns to determine which accounts are most likely mule accounts involved in the movement of illicit funds. And the other platform that we're working on is called the Digital Payments Intelligence Platform. That's a little earlier in its development, but the objective there is to assign a real-time risk score to every single digital transaction that happens in this country, so that the participants in this ecosystem, particularly banks who the remitter and the beneficiary bank, can take a call on whether to allow that transaction through or not. So these are the three large-scale DPIs that we're working on. There might be more. Our job is to kind of build and scale them, and eventually perhaps hand it over to someone to kind of run in perpetuity, and we will pick up the next set of systems to build. The final sphere of operation, of course, is ecosystem engagement and collaboration, coming and spending time here and spreading the good word of what the RBI is doing, working with universities, working with fintechs and startups in general, connecting them to the regulated ecosystem. That's the third sphere of what we do. So that's essentially what RBIH is here to do.
Absolutely. No, thank you. Very detailed. Really appreciate it. We'll dive into some of these pieces as we go along. Now, I've seen your posts on LinkedIn. You are hiring aggressively for RBIH as well. I want to kind of tie in two pieces. Like, when you look at, given that there are some long-term pieces that you're working on and some short-term pieces that you're working on, and all of these at scale, what does success look for you? Like, let's assume that we are here again next year. Like, what would you, look to speak about in terms of accomplishments? But I want to tie that to what is the kind of talent you're looking at? I mean, a lot of people here who probably have the same sense of seva, want to contribute, but don't know how. But so what kind of talent are you looking at when you're trying to hire? And what does, how does it tie into the success that you're looking to drive as a CEO for RBIH?
Yeah. I'll actually answer your second question first, which is what does success look like for us? I have a very high bar for what a good system is, and that bar was set by the people that I worked with. Every one of you uses UPI every single day. It's an incredible system. Some of you use Aadhaar as well. I mean, very, very often. And these are all systems that operate at population scale. Literally, I think UPI did 21.6 billion transactions last month. That's close to 1 billion transactions a day. That's 700 million transactions a day. Aadhaar, again, has more than 1 billion people enrolled in it. And there are multiple million transactions, authentications that happen every day. For these systems to operate at scale seamlessly, they need to be designed exceptionally well. They need to be engineered in such a way that they are resilient, they're fault tolerant, they are performant, and they work in milliseconds, which is an incredibly high engineering bar to clear. And so the first part is each of these systems that RBIH builds has to meet that bar or exceed that bar. And the second part is it has to serve a purpose. The idea being that credit penetration through ULI has to increase. the fraud detection systems have to work in such a way that the number of fraudulent transactions that happen, the number of these problematic cases of like digital arrest, etc., all of these start coming down, and they actually have a real world impact. These are essentially the only measures of success that matter, which is how well is the system designed, how smoothly and robustly does it operate, and how much of an impact does it have in terms of the actual purpose of those systems. So from 1 year from now, these three systems that we are looking to scale have to operate at that same kind of performance bar. And hopefully we'll have maybe one or two new things that we would have picked up by then. There are several candidates for that, but we will be running a few proof concepts, seeing what else we can pick up, in be it in AI or in quantum or in tokenization. There could be several areas that we might pick up. But that's how I would kind of define success. And to do that, we need exceptional people to come and contribute. And essentially, there are three things that we look for. One is the intent to actually serve the country, and having that as core in your heart and first priority, that you're here. If you join here, you put your country first, and you build for India. The second is competence. So, these kinds of systems cannot be built by people who don't know what they're doing. So they better be very good at what they do. Of course. And this could be across engineering, product, research, operations, because you're working with multiple ecosystems, multiple players in the ecosystem. And the third is essentially commitment, which, RBIH is not a hyper-funded startup, and RBIH is essentially a subsidiary of the central bank, which means there are constraints on compensation, and there are constraints on mostly compensation. Really. So, I'm very proud to say that the leadership team that have come and joined us are exceptional people. My CTO, who's just joined us a couple of weeks ago, is 23 years at ThoughtWorks. Our chief of AI and data science, again, has worked at Goldman Sachs and Thomson Reuters. Our incoming chief product officer has worked at Walmart and a bunch of other places. So, and these are all people who have made personal sacrifices, who have put their mission to serve ahead of their own personal financial good, let's say. And my entire team is like that. They're exceptional people who see not only the purpose, the larger purpose, but also are attracted to the scale and the fact that basically everything that we build will be used by all of us, whether you know it or not, for decades.
Absolutely.
So it is literally laying the bricks that all of us will stand on 10, 20 years from now.
Correct.
So that's the kind of people that we're looking for.
Amazing. Thank you for such a detailed answer. I think the great segue to my next question, which should ground everybody on the digital public infrastructure. We throw the word DPI around a lot, but I think it'll be great if you can give us like a DPI 101 on what is this? Why is this amazing? And why, the people that you mentioned as mentors in your life early had the vision, to set this up. Like, what is this? What are we talking about?
There's this quote by one of the more he was a Brazilian president in the 1920s, and I really like that quote. He says that to govern is to build roads, and these are essentially the roads that we're building for the movement of money, for the movement of information, for all of us. And building common infrastructure is essentially one of the core parts, core roles of any government and of any bureaucracy, so to speak. The job is to build systems that everyone else can build on top of. If you don't have roads, then cars don't make sense. If you don't have these kind of pipes for the movement of data, then digital credit is not possible. If you don't have the pipes to move money, then a lot of fintech businesses couldn't exist. And the thing is, common infrastructure can very easily become rent-seeking, and often the investment and the both capital and time and labor and basically capability investment is significant and needs to be done over many years patiently and thoughtfully for you to build a system that other people can rely on or build on top of. And those kind of investments, if anybody other than the government does it, there is always a question of what is the return to my balance sheet, etc.
Yeah.
Whereas if you are building it as a part of a national mission, then the only question is what does this do for the country?
Yeah.
And so digital public infrastructure is essentially the digital equivalent of roads, hospitals, schools. That is physical infrastructure, public infrastructure. Digital infrastructure is essentially the same thing for movement of data, the movement of money, the making sure that when you do that, it is safe. I mean, fraud detection systems are the equivalent of the police for the movement of data, right? So DPI is a broad term, but it's essentially common infrastructure that everybody in the ecosystem can either connect to or build on top of for the movement of these kind of either data, money, or ensuring that it's done in a protected manner.
Yeah, amazing. I think many of us use these infrastructures without realizing the complexity and the hard work that has gone behind it. So I want to touch on the scale that you mentioned. So given that you were part of the early days of this build out, like how did you approach scale? Like you just mentioned 21 billion transactions, I think in November or December 2025. Like PayPal, I come from PayPal, right? We do close to 30 billion a year and we are in 200 plus markets, right? And so doing 21 billion odd in a month, that is significant scale. So when you started this journey, given that you were an early player, given your background in Setu, like how did you guys approach this from a technical, feasibility, thinking about scale, designing the system perspective? If you can just touch on that engineering aspect briefly, please.
Sure. See, when you're building infrastructure for scale, the idea is you don't try to become everything for everyone.
No.
You have certain design principles that keep things quite minimal. Aadhaar's success is in the fact that it does ID verification and nothing more.
Yeah.
And again, ID is defined very tightly. It is age, gender, date of birth, address. That's it. And your biometric details are your 2 iris scans, your 10 fingerprints, and your face. That's it. It's very tempting to sit and capture more and more, saying what is your income level, what is your father's name, your mother's name. I mean, you can very quickly the form can become very large.
Correct.
And that kind of expansionist tendency itself becomes self-defeating.
Yeah.
So having a very minimal design, and Aadhaar authentication again for most cases is a binary yes/no response, right? So it's you give your Aadhaar number, you give your biometric, and the CIDR will respond with a yes or a no.
Yeah.
That's a systemic design principle that has enabled it to scale because it has to be adopted by so many different types of systems. So the leaner you keep it, the easier it becomes for more systems to actually interact with it. Same goes for something like UPI.
Yeah.
You want, UPI has many interesting characteristics. One is that the addressing layer is separated from the account layer. Typically, the account and the address were the same thing. The account number was one and it mapped to one account.
Yeah.
Whereas depending on whatever app you use, or if you're a merchant, you have a QR, you've seen the wall of QRs in certain merchants, but they all map to the same account.
Yes.
And so that gives it flexibility for it to be interoperable.
Yeah.
And so that design choice enabled multiple people to build on top of UPI.
Yeah.
The other part being that, to the extent possible, you keep it as low cost as you can. And one of the main reasons UPI has taken off in terms of adoption is that it's free. I mean, I know that the industry has different views on this,
Yeah.
but it has been a massive contributor to its scale. So it is interoperable. It is incredibly low cost. It is again, you can literally send, I think, a couple of paise on it, which there is no least count. The least count is kept as minimal as possible.
Yeah.
So all of these are engineering design principles that enable scale. So whenever you're building any kind of DPI, what engineering principles or systemic design principles you put in place will directly determine its ability to operate seamlessly at scale.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think sometimes we take this for granted. Even the QR code that saved, all of us during the COVID time, and which existed much before, the COVID time as well. I still remember because, I'm at PayPal. I mean, like we started building this QR solutions in the US because that became a need and there was no existing solution and then we had to go build it out. So it's amazing how much forethought has gone into this, public infrastructure. Sahil, I'm going to jump to another topic that is a favorite of yours, and you touched on it, but I want to kind of double click on it. But first, see, if you think about AI, see, AI today is embedded into everything that we do, right? And so, at RBIH, how are you thinking about AI? I mean, I'm thinking about it both from the creation and the decisioning aspect, right? And so if you can touch on it, I think it'll be awesome in terms of what does it mean for you day to day? Like, how do you see people at RBIH using it? But also, how are you thinking about leveraging AI for the impact it creates on the infrastructure that you're building?
So, look, AI is getting embedded into, I mean, it's like, I think in the early 2000s, there were lots of conversations around cloud.
Yeah.
And people were talking about, bring cloud to your business, etc. And now it is so core to pretty much every software business that you don't necessarily say that we are a cloud business.
I know.
I mean, all of your businesses are essentially cloud businesses. All of your businesses run on AWS. So, or some cloud or the others, right? So, the same goes for AI. I mean, there's a lot of conversation now because it's the technology itself is new, but it will become like a core embedded tool that will be part of pretty much every workflow eventually.
Yeah.
That so much so that I don't think we'll even notice that it's AI.
Yeah.
In fact, a lot of things that you don't notice is AI is actually AI. All of you, when you're doing reels on Instagram or when you're clicking on an ad, I mean, it's all of these services, the prioritization is all being done through AI. And it's chatbots that most people are thinking about when we talk about AI today. But AI has so many different forms, which have been broadly introduced into all kinds of systems. But there have been certain massive leaps that have happened in AI, which allows you to, for example, use agentic AI for carrying out operations. Voice technology has gotten a lot better. So robocalling has gotten a lot better. Customer support has introduced AI into his workflows. In each of these kind of fields, and it's not like, credit decisioning did not use AI or data science, 5 years ago.
Correct.
You just have the big change, I think, in technologically speaking, is that there is a new type of AI that has come in, which is transformer-led models. But neural nets and tree-based decisioning and those kind of systems have existed for more than a decade. Like this is not new. And so for me, the idea of what can we do within RBIH, the idea is how do we increase our own capacity and our own efficiency in development. So our software engineers are encouraged to use AI tools to ensure that the code is up to scratch. Testing and QA, again, these are suites that can benefit from AI, AI-based tooling. Even on workflow management and prioritization, what can we do to kind of use the latest tools, etc. As far as the ecosystem goes, I think since we are one of those trusted entities that sits at the middle and has visibility across the board, implementing it in observability. We're building an API gateway. How do we ensure that when APIs, for example, have errors or failure rates? Typically, if you put an alert for every type of failure, you end up with something called alert fatigue.
Of
right?
course.
So how do you use AI systems to prioritize alerts so that the most critical ones are surfaced? In fraud detection, of course, we are trying out various models to see which one is most efficient and can handle noise the most effectively.
Correct.
Credit decisioning, we're not a lender, so we don't really use it. But essentially, can we generate synthetic data sets that enable startups out there to train their models
Absolutely.
on various types of use cases? One more interesting area of application potentially in the future, we've not done anything on it, but it's something that we're thinking about internally, is in agentic AI. An agent has to be able to know what it's supposed to do. So it needs to be trained in that environment. I know that, in the Valley and China, there are lots of companies building just training environments for AI agents, like a mock Amazon or a mock Twitter or a mock CBS. So can we build these kind of systems, training environments? Because, you can be very smart, you can have a PhD, but if you don't know how to change a car tire, then your PhD doesn't mean much.
Of course.
You learn how to change the tire of a car. Right?
Yeah.
So same goes for AI. I mean, AI are very intelligent, very smart, etc. But they need to be trained for certain use cases. So for that, you need to build environments. So there are lots of things, many things to be done. Again, on validation, ultimately is done by humans. So on RAG-based models, how do you increase the efficiency of validation so that model learning is sped up? There's so much to be done that on each of these fields.
Correct.
So we're looking at all of them.
Absolutely. I think the observability point that you mentioned earlier ties in nicely to this as well, because AI observability also is such an upcoming and nascent field as well. Maybe one last question then, given that we're out of time. I mean, I could be here all day. I think, there are a lot of us in the room are, eager-eyed looking at you, given your journey operating at scale, given your stints at multiple places, contributing to infrastructure that touches pretty much every, Indian's lives. So, what is there a message, like, is there something that you would like to share with us as we all look, at our lives and careers as well? Like one message for the policymakers, the builders, the enthusiasts in the room from you.
Look, it's hard to give one message to such a diverse audience, but I keep coming back to this because I think it's important. Roughly 1 out of 5 human beings is Indian. So solving for India and our needs is solving for humanity's needs. We're entering a world order where everybody seems to be looking out for themselves. And while it's obviously certain parts of the world are great markets for AI and great markets for certain types of businesses, we have 1.6 billion people, and if we don't solve our own problems, no one else is going to. And so it's a call to serve your own people, build and solve our problems, and the market will grow the more our people actually build for us.
Yeah.
So that would probably be my only message.
Thank you so much. A round of applause for Sahil. Such a purposeful journey, the importance of purpose, importance of building at scale, importance of staying on top of, cutting edge trends and thinking, aspirationally and big to make a difference to India. Thank you so much, Sahil. We all learned a lot. Appreciate it. Thank you.
What an absolutely outstanding conversation that was. Thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing with us your insights, talking to us about our steadfast way forward for India Digital Summit 2025 and sharing with us your thoughts. If I could request the both of you to kindly stay back on stage for a quick moment. Ladies and gentlemen, we now head into the launch of the Pulse Annual FinTech Report 2025. Now, the Pulse Annual FinTech Report 2025 has been conceptualized and created by SGAPR, leading PR and communication consulting firm in FinTech and technology space. This report is supported by Payments Council of India and FinTech Convergence Council. It captures the shift that we are witnessing across Indian fintechs, especially over the last 12 months. It is a comprehensive fintech edition that brings together data, market patterns, and leadership level insights to reflect how fintech is evolving in substance, not just in size. For this launch, along with our dignitaries present on stage, I would also like to extend an invite to Mr. Rahul Jain, CEO PR Practice Strategic Growth Advisors. If I could request you to kindly make your way to the stage, Mr. Rahul Jain. A round of applause, everyone.
So.
And accompanying Mr. Rahul, we have Ms. Latika Kolnati, Group Director, Internet and Mobile Association of India. Thank you, Ms. Latika, for joining us on stage. We will now proceed with the launch of the Pulse. Dignitaries, if I could kindly request you to do the honors and proceed with the launch of the Pulse. To all of us gathered out here, let's put our hands together and celebrate this moment, bringing to you the Pulse Annual FinTech Report 2025, conceptualized and created by SGAPR, in support by Payments Council of India and FinTech Convergence Council. Capturing in this edition the shift that we have witnessed across Indian fintech, especially over the last 12 months. It is a comprehensive fintech edition that brings together all your requirements, including data, market patterns, leadership level insights, and more. I want to take this opportunity and thank all of our dignitaries present on stage for spearheading the launch of the Pulse. Thank you, dignitaries, once again for joining us. A round of applause, everyone, to our dignitaries gathered today. Now, we have the QR code available for the launch of the Pulse as well, rather the digital edition of the Pulse. Can we have the QR code displayed on our screens? Yes. For those of you looking to have a digital copy of the Pulse, requesting you to kindly scan the QR code that's displayed on our screens so that you will be directed to downloading a digital version of the Pulse. We're going to leave the QR code on our screen for a moment to give you the opportunity to scan the QR code, enabling you to download your digital copy of the Pulse, the FinTech Report of 2025. Before we continue with today's session, I would like to express my gratitude to our partners for their continued support towards IDS 2026, to our gold partner, Bybit, our gold partner, PaySprint, our gold partner, First Hive, our gold partner, Jagran News Media, and our silver partner, Times Internet.